Okay, so I'm actually going to introduce to you our first speaker. It's Megan Kay. She is our outreach coordinator here at the Living with Fire program. And I'm really excited to have Megan do this presentation with me. So take it away, Megan.
Jamie. So I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my screen now. So I'm Megan. I'm the new, relatively new outreach coordinator. I started, when did I start? January. Sorry, bear with me while I start this presentation. Apparently it stopped from when we did our practice earlier. So today I'm going to be talking about defensible space. I'm going to introduce some concepts. Jamie, do you see my notes? Yes, we do. I think I'm going to make sure that everything looks good. Okay. So yeah, today we're going to do an intro into defensible space. We're going to talk about the zones within the defensible space area. And then we're going to go into the 5 steps to creating effective defensible space within those zones through managing the vegetation around your home. And then when I'm done with my presentation, I'm going to throw it back to Jamie, and she's going to go into more depth about maintaining the defensible space around your home. Okay. So before we start, I wanted to kind of pick your brains again. We're going to launch another poll. And Jamie, if you don't mind launching this one,
yeah, no problem.
I'm not able to access that one. And so we just wanted to get an idea of how you guys define defensible space and what your understanding of the concept before we begin. So if you guys could participate and just choose which of these answers best describes your understanding of defensible space. There's option 1, removing all plants on your property, creating bare ground. Option 2, ensuring your home is constructed with proper building materials to reduce the wildfire threat. And then option 3, ensuring there's an area between the house and an oncoming wildfire where vegetation has been managed to reduce the wildfire threat. So it looks like we're still getting responses. I'm going to allow a few more seconds for people to participate in this poll. And it looks like people do have a pretty good understanding of the definition, so that's good. Just a few more seconds. Some people still responding. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and end polling. And we're going to share those results. So we do have a few people, or one person that believes that thinks that defensible space is removing all the plants on your property. That would definitely work, but it's not necessary. We'll go into that later. But most of you chose option number 3, and that's the one we were hoping you were going to choose, which is the defining defensible space as an area between your house and the oncoming wildfire where the vegetation has been managed to reduce the wildfire threat. Okay, so let's dive in. So this is, next slide will just reiterate that definition. So defensible space, in addition to, defensible space will improve the likelihood of your home surviving a wildfire without assistance from firefighters. Oops. This is accomplished by managing the vegetation around the home to slow the spread of fire in case vegetation does catch fire during a wildfire, mostly due to embers or direct flame contact. These photos in this slide are an example of a successful defensible space. This is a home in Carson City, Nevada, in an area that was affected by the waterfall fire of 2014. That fire destroyed 18 homes in that area. If you look at the first photo on the left, this is the home before defensible space work was done. Luckily, that work was done before the fire came, because as you can see in the next photo, there's been a lot of work done to clear brush. And there's also been some home retrofitting. If you'll notice, looks like a new roof, some enclosed decking. And we're going to talk about home retrofitting in our next workshop on the 29th. So be sure and register for that so that you can get a more in-depth look at home retrofitting. And then, as you can see on the right, the home did survive the wildfire through efforts like defensible space and home hardening. What is happening here? Sorry guys, doesn't like my right arrow. So when some homeowners hear the term defensible space, they might envision a large expanse of bare ground surrounding their home. And while this is definitely effective for stopping wildfire or slowing it down, it's not necessary. It can create soil erosion. So it is possible to have a nice landscape that you enjoy spending time in, but while also creating defensible space. So we're going to dive into defining your defensible space area. So your defensible space area, the area around your home, we talk about it in zones. And different agencies have different terms for these zones, but the basic concepts apply across the board. So if you're looking at literature from another agency, it might be referred to differently, but it's the same general idea. So the zone within 5 feet from your home, we call the non-combustible zone, and you can see it highlighted in this graphic here. It's critical to ensure that this area is free of combustible material that could potentially be ignited by embers. So most homes that ignite during a wildfire are due to embers that travel ahead of the wildfire, and they ignite either the home itself or vegetation around the home and could potentially carry fire to the home. So therefore, it's important to constantly maintain this area and keep it free of combustible material. So some recommendations for doing that. You can use lawn, flower beds. You can have ground covers, but for ground covers, we recommend using low-growing herbaceous plants, and that will help minimize the maintenance you have to do and minimize the accumulation of dead material from woody vegetation that drop leaves. And you always want to make sure to keep all of your vegetation well irrigated, but especially in this area. You don't want anything drying out and becoming a fire hazard. This area directly adjacent to your house is a great place to emphasize walkways, bricks and pavers, and using rock mulches. You want to avoid using wood mulches in this area. You can use wood mulch in your landscape, but just not in this area because wood mulch is combustible. And in this area, you want to keep it completely free of combustible materials. So the next zone within your defensible space area, we call the lean, clean, and green zone, and it extends at least 30 feet from your house, sometimes more. And I'm going to define what lean, clean, and green mean later. But just so you get an idea of what this zone is, this is your residential landscape. This is the part of your property that you spend time in and you maintain. It usually has irrigation, and this is where people like to plant ornamental shrubs and trees. And the final zone within your defensible space area is we refer to as the wildland fuel reduction zone, because that's where you want to reduce your wildland fuel in order to slow down potential fires. So this is the area just beyond your landscape where sagebrush, cheatgrass, pinyon, and other wild plants grow. This could be an extension of your own property, or sometimes it extends onto someone else's property, the neighbor. And in Nevada, quite often, if you're living in the wildland-urban interface, this could be on BLM lands. So before you do any defensible space work, you want to try to contact whoever manages this property and come up with a plan to work on that defensible space. So those are the zones within your defensible space area. Now we're going to quickly go through the 5 steps to managing your vegetation within those zones so that you can create and maintain effective defensible space. Sorry, I know I'm moving pretty fast. We just have a lot of ground to cover. So step 1 is know your distance. So your defensible space distance, when we talk about defensible space, we're talking about the distance extending from the base of your home. And this distance is not the same for every property. It varies depending on the steepness of the slope of your property and also the type of dominant vegetation. So in Nevada, we're pretty used to seeing the dominant vegetation being shrubs and woodlands, so sagebrush and pinyon. We recommend using this defensible space table to determine the right amount of defensible space for your home. So let's look at an example of a home where the dominant vegetation is shrubs and woodland, which you can see in the left-hand column. And we're going to see what defensible space would look like for different slopes of a home with this type of vegetation. So for the first example, for shrubs and woodland vegetation on a flat slope, we recommend that you have 100 feet of defensible space between the home and that dominant vegetation. Now, for a steeper slope of 40 degrees plus, 200 feet might be necessary. And then for very steep slopes, 200 feet will probably be needed. So if the recommended defensible space distance for your home exceeds your property boundary, like I mentioned before, just go ahead and try to get in contact with landowners, your neighbors, or BLM, and see if you can come up with a plan for managing the fuel in that area. So on to step number 2 for creating effective defensible space within your defensible space area. Remove the dead. So dead vegetation has a significant influence on fire behavior. It can be easily ignited by embers produced from a wildfire. And dead vegetation includes weeds, which can dry out, cheatgrass, dead branches, needles and leaves, and dead twigs that are still attached to plants. So in addition to clearing out dead plants, you want to make sure you're pruning all of your plants and getting rid of the dead that's on those plants, because that is a fire hazard for sure. Okay, on to step 3. So step 3 to creating effective defensible space around your home is to create separation between the vegetation in your landscape. Plant separation also depends on the slope of your landscape. So go ahead and refer back to that defensible space table, which is included in one of our publications, which we'll talk about. So you can find that online. But for this example, on a flat, gently sloping terrain, individual shrubs or small clumps of shrubs within the defensible space zone should be separated from one another by at least twice the height of the average shrub. So, for example, if the typical shrub height in your landscape is 2 feet, then there should be a separation between shrub branches of at least 4 feet. And then for homes located on steeper slopes, then that separation distance will be greater. This will help slow the spread of fire if your vegetation around your home is ignited by embers during a wildfire. Okay, this is what separation could look like in a lean, clean, and green zone of a residential landscape. This is a landscape in Nevada. There is a lawn in this landscape, it's just not pictured, but as you can see, there is good separation between shrubs and groups of shrubs, and they also utilize hard surfaces within this landscape, and it's free of dead material, which is good. Not all, your landscape doesn't necessarily have to look like this. You could have turf grass instead of decomposed granite, but I just thought this was a great example of separation. Okay, moving on to step 4. So step 4 to creating effective defensible space in your landscape is to eliminate ladder fuels. A ladder fuel is low-growing vegetation that, if ignited, could potentially carry fire to other surfaces. So, for example, shrubs or tall, dry grasses that exist under the canopy of a tree, if those were to be ignited during a wildfire by embers, then they could actually carry fire into the canopy of the tree, and then that could spread fire to your home. So you want to make sure to eliminate those ladder fuels. So how do you do that? Prune your trees. Make sure that you trim lower dead branches up to 10 feet if you can. Remove shrubs and tall grasses from under the drip line of trees. So the drip line, if you guys don't know what that is, it's the outer circumference of a tree's canopy. It's the circular area of soil found directly under the tree. So to determine what the drip line of your tree is, just imagine or observe during rain, when it's raining. When rain falls on trees, the trees shed the water out to its widest branches, and then the rain then drips off the widest branches to the ground. So that distance will be the circumference of your drip line under your tree, and that's the area that you want to eliminate ladder fuels in. You can maintain lawn, flower bed, and some low-growing ground covers, but you want to make sure that they're well irrigated, and you want to choose plants that aren't going to get too high, and also prune and trim plants back so that they don't get over 2 feet under the drip line. But it is recommended to just eliminate ladder fields under the drip line altogether. When you're trimming your trees and the dead branches on your trees, remember that you shouldn't trim more than 1/3 of the tree's height, because that could potentially kill the tree, creating a fire hazard because you'd have dead standing fuel in your landscape, and you don't want that. Okay, and the last step to creating effective defensible space in your landscape is keeping your landscape lean, clean, and green. This is a photo of a home that survived a wildfire. I'm sorry, I forgot to include the caption. So I can include the caption on the slides so you guys can get more details about the fire. But this fire, as you can see, the landscape is lean, clean, and green, and they also have done work in the wildland fuel reduction area. So fire was not carried to the house, and so the house survived the wildfire. Keeping your landscape lean, clean, and green will eliminate easily ignitable fuel or kindling near the house, and this will help prevent embers from starting a fire in your landscape. It'll also keep fire intensity low, just in case your vegetation does catch fire, and it'll slow the spread of fire, just in case your vegetation does catch fire. So when we say lean, we mean there's only a small amount of flammable vegetation, and you can achieve that by either removing vegetation or selecting less flammable vegetation when working on your landscape. Clean means that you've cleaned out that dead material, whether it's vegetation or just debris around the house. You want to keep your landscape clean. And then when we say green, you want to keep your landscape well irrigated. And I know that can be a challenge in different areas, but there are resources to help you water wisely. I'm looking and I do see that my slides have been cut off a little bit. I do apologize for that. If you weren't able to get any of the information, just let us know. We can make these slides available after the presentation. So that's the end of my part. I'm going to go ahead and stop my share, and I'm going to throw it back to Jamie.
Hi, all. Well, thanks, Megan.
Yeah.
Let's see if I can share this, and hopefully you don't see my family again. But
your family is lovely.
Thanks.
Okay, I'm gonna stop my video and just let you take it.
Okay. Okay, so. Okay, I'm going to advance some slides, so I apologize. Oops. Okay, so we are going to do another poll here. And Megan, would it be okay if you share the poll?
Yeah, it seems like we're having a hard time launching each
Yeah.
other's polls. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and launch poll number 3.
Okay, so I was just wondering, how often our attendees work on their defensible space? Once a year, once every couple of years, multiple times a year, and some people haven't worked on defensible space. So I just want to get an idea of where everybody is coming from. Looks like people are still voting, so I'm going to give another few seconds for this. Okay, I think we're done. I'm going to end the poll and share the results. So it looks like a majority of you, 51% of you, create or work on your defensible space multiple times a year. Some individuals work on their defensible space once a year. 6% of individuals work on their defensible space every couple of years. And there's 10% who have never worked on their defensible space. So thanks for sharing that all. I really want to emphasize, let me go to the next slide so you can see the importance of maintenance. It's really important to be doing defensible space multiple times a year. I to give you an example, I ended up cleaning up the dead leaves that had blown up against my house 2 weeks ago. And then the smoke cleared out and we were able to enjoy all of that weather over the weekend. And I went outside and my 3-year-old was holding me accountable. And she said, Mama, you should really clean up those leaves. And I thought about all of my to-do lists and I sighed and said, okay, fine. Yeah, you're right. I need to. So, plants are growing constantly. Some of them need to be cut back. Some dead vegetation needs to be cleared out. And this needs to be happening multiple times a year. And so I wanted to show this picture. Oops, you know what? I think I advanced too far. I wanted to show this picture right here. Here we have some dead vegetation up next to the house in the first 5-foot zone. We have a shrub that needs to be trimmed or pruned, and we have more dead grasses that are in between these shrubs in the defensible space zone. So it's just really important to clean this stuff out multiple times a year. I really want to emphasize that. Defensible space is really a process. It's not something that you do once every couple of years. Really important to do this a couple times a year. Okay, so I really wanted to get into cheatgrass and managing it. If you are from another state and you don't have cheatgrass, I apologize. You're going to be learning a lot about cheatgrass, but it's really important for Nevadans for sure. Now, cheatgrass is the most ignitable substance in Nevada's rangeland, and it produces these really fast fires. Because of this, we recommend that all cheatgrass is removed within 30 feet from your home. Now, most cheatgrass fires are started by catalytic converters on cars. So individuals will go out into the desert and they'll park their vehicle on dried vegetation, and that vegetation will ignite on the very hot catalytic converter on that vehicle. Cigarette butts, welding activities, lawnmowers, fireworks, weed eaters, all of these are the majority of the reasons why we have cheatgrass fires. And so I really wanted to share 3 pictures of cheatgrass and show the different life stages of this grass. So on the far right, cheatgrass is known for it having a nodding seed head. So you can actually see it on the far right picture. It looks like a shepherd's crook. So it kind of crooks down as you see in that picture. And this grass is called a winter annual. And basically it germinates in the fall and it survives in the winter. It continues growing in the spring, and then it ends up dropping seed and dying in the summer. And so from a management, actually, let me take a step back. These seeds will remain in the soil for years, and they will just wait for the perfect conditions to germinate. And so from a management perspective, it's really important to reduce the amount of seeds that are found in the soil. And I wanted to talk about different ways to get rid of this plant. So when it's green, you can spray herbicide. You could use grazing animals to eat this. You can hand pull it, you can hoe it. I do have to warn that if there's any sort of disturbance on the soil, then you do have another chance for cheatgrass to germinate again. When it's in this red-brown phase, which is the middle picture, you can pull this weed, you can mow it, you can weed whack it. When it's in this red-brown phase, that is when it's already producing seed. And this isn't the time to have grazing animals be eating this. Grazing animals can eat these hard seeds if they choose to eat it. Some of them won't even eat it when it's at this stage. But if grazing animals do eat it at this stage, they can get something called lump jaw. And these hard seeds get stuck in the jaw of the grazing animals. So the middle picture is not the time to have grazing animals eat this weed. And then when it's at the yellow straw-like color phase, which is the picture on the far right of your screen, this is when you would weed whack, mow it, pull it. You really want to remove this vegetation from the site. This is really flammable right here. I do have to mention that if you do decide to weed whack it or mow it, then you really want to do it not on a red flag warning day. And so for those of you who don't know what a red flag warning day is, it's when the relative humidity is really low, plants are dry, there's strong winds, and if a fire is sparked, there is a greater chance of this fire getting out of control, and it's really difficult to contain it. So the National Weather Service pulls out these alerts that there's a red flag warning, and so individuals should be careful during this time. There was an individual who decided he wanted to weed whack his cheatgrass during a red flag warning day. And what happened was rocks were ricocheted, and then sparks were created, and then it ignited the cheatgrass. And so if you do decide to, remove the cheatgrass at the yellow straw-like phase, and you want to use mowing and weed whackers, you should probably do it not on a red flag warning day. Maybe in the morning when humidity is high, maybe spray down the area, and then cut it down, and then remove it from the site. I also wanted to mention pre-emergence is also an option to use for getting rid of your cheatgrass. So pre-emergence is a chemical that you can spray onto bare dirt during the fall, and it will actually prevent seeds from germinating. Pre-emergence must be watered into the soil, and so some people recommend maybe putting down pre-emergence down on your soil before a big precipitation event, so that chemical, that pre-emergence, can be watered into the soil and it stays within the first 2 inches of your soil. You also want to consider what type of soil you have. Do you have sandy soil? If you do, it might be more difficult for that pre-emergence to be retained in your soil. You also want to consider your slope. If you spray down this herbicide and then we get a big precip event and it just carries those chemicals downhill, you'd have to consider that. You also want to consider the placement of application. Now, pre-emergence will impact your grass, your flowers, any planted seeds, it's going to impact. And so to give you an idea of somebody considering pre-emergence, I'm going to use my example. I live on a slope, and my backyard is pretty steep. It's about a 40-degree slope, and it's so hard to just hike down the hill, take care of my weeds, bag them up, and hike back up. It's really tiring, and it takes a long time. And so I decided it would be a good idea. Maybe I should use pre-emergence. And so I made sure there wasn't any flowers or grass around where I'm going to spray this pre-emergence. And I looked around and I see that my neighbors below me have an organic farm. And I was thinking, you know what, it's just my luck. If I put down this pre-emergence, we get a big precip event, a lot of rain comes in, it's just going to flow down off my slope into that organic farm. So I decided against using pre-emergence. So there's a lot of things to consider using pre-emergence. I will tell you I'm not an expert on it. If you have other questions, you can always email us at lwf@unr.edu, and I can find the right folks to help answer your questions if I'm unable to. But I just wanted to show you that all the different options of getting rid of cheatgrass. Okay, so right here, I wanted to talk about ornamental junipers. A lot of people like ornamental junipers. They are low maintenance. You don't have to water them much. They always stay green, and they'll survive. And unfortunately, they're incredibly flammable. Now, somebody during the waterfall fire, which Megan was talking about, it's a fire that happened in Carson City in 2004. A firefighter from the Nevada Division of Forestry gave us a quote about it, about his experience with it. And I just wanted to share it with the group. So he said, "The little green gas cans," that's what firefighters call ornamental junipers, aka ornamental junipers, gave us a lot of problems. During the waterfall fire, embers smoldered undetected for 10 to 15 minutes under the junipers. They then erupted and basically flashed over, burning intensely. Most often, these junipers were adjacent to structures. During a fast-moving fire, it can be very easy for firefighters to forget about the junipers and move on, thus allowing the possibility of flare-ups behind them. This picture right here is not from the waterfall fire. It's actually from a fire that happened here in Reno in 2011. It was called the Cullen Fire. But a lot of homes like to have, or a lot of folks like to have ornamental junipers right next to their house. And I just want to let you know it's really flammable. We recommend having this shrub 30 feet or further away from your house because it's so flammable. Right here is just a picture of I think it was a townhouse in Carson City, Nevada. There were junipers right next to the house. An individual flicked his cigarette butt into the junipers, and then they erupted into flames and then ignited the building. So important to have these plants 30 feet or further from your house. And this is what you would see if you were to peer into a juniper shrub. So let's say that you were to move the branches aside, you'd see this accumulation of dead leaves and dead branchlets. Junipers, they have these volatile oils. They're really flammable, and they also have this dried vegetation. And it's just the perfect storm for embers to ignite. I really wanted to talk quickly about wood mulch. Megan emphasized that the first 5 feet from your home are critical, that you keep it non-combustible. So you want to ensure that there's no things that can ignite there. So if you would like wood mulch, please don't put it within 5 feet of your home because it's pretty flammable. Wood mulch can be used within the 5 to 30 foot zone if you'd like to use it sparingly. If you want to use it in a widespread manner, then we recommend using it more than 30 feet. Okay, so I wanted to talk about defensible space inspections. So you can get a really knowledgeable person about defensible space to come over to your house, or reach out to your local fire agency, and they will do an inspection around your yard and give you recommendations on how to improve your defensible space. And the best way to do this is by going to your local fire agency and asking them to do a defensible space inspection. They'll give you a written recommendation for you. If you live in Nevada and you need any help knowing who to reach, you can always email us at lwf@unr.edu, and then we can help you reach out to your local agency. Okay. Now let's say that you have already done defensible space around your yard and you have this extra vegetation. What do you do with it? The first thing to do would be to reach out to your local agency. Some agencies offer curbside chipping programs. Some agencies have trailer pickup programs. Some agencies have green waste events in your community. And some agencies aren't able to help. And so for the cases of, if your agency isn't allowed to help, I'm going to help you think outside the box of ways to get rid of this vegetation. Maybe you should check out your local dump and see if they have free dump days. Now, I know for a fact that the dump here in Reno, we had a free dump day. I don't know if it's still going on, but I'm pretty sure it was last weekend is what I saw. Or you can even reach out to your neighbors and do a grassroots effort. My neighbors and I created a group, and we decided that we were going to reach out to landscapers and get quotes for defensible space work being done on I think there were 4 of us, 4 of the neighbors landscaping. And that's actually a much cheaper option than if you were to reach out to a landscaping company by yourself and ask for, quote on work being done. And so if a landscaping company then does work on all 4 residents' property, it's going to be cheaper, and they can also get rid of that vegetation. You can also think of other ways. My neighborhood, we decided, there was a green waste event around here. Some of us didn't have a trailer or a truck to transport this vegetation. So we decided we were all going to create defensible space, put this vegetation down on a tarp on our sidewalk. One night we all came out and we collected the vegetation. We borrowed a neighbor's trailer and then, dumped it off at a green waste event. So there are ways to get rid of this vegetation. I do want to mention there's actually green waste events going on in Washoe County. I apologize for those of you who aren't a part of Washoe County, but I wanted to let our Washoe County residents know there are green waste events going on every weekend in October and November, with the exception of the weekend of Nevada Day. For those of you that don't live in Nevada, yes, we do have a holiday. It's called Nevada Day. I always thought it was funny that people who don't live here didn't realize there's a Nevada Day. We celebrate our statehood at the last weekend of the month. But anyway, from 9 to 5, there's going to be these locations for green waste events in Washoe County. And then we'll be sharing this on social media. This is a collaborative effort among Truckee Meadows Fire Rescue, the Nevada Division of Forestry, and the Nevada Network of Fire Adapted Communities and Living with Fire. And then I also wanted to, I'm going to hand this over to Megan and then look and see if there's any questions, because we're going to be answering questions here soon. But I understand that this could be really, really overwhelming. There's a lot of recommendations. Maybe you have tons of vegetation on your property. But if you are completely overwhelmed with all of this, I think maybe it's a good idea just to focus, just start on the first 5 feet from your home. That is the most critical area to focus on. Just remove the dead vegetation from the first 5 feet from your home, and then, gradually work your way out. That's my recommendation. I know that when I first moved into my house, it was really overwhelming. It still is overwhelming. And so I just try to focus, inward, and then slowly move your way outward. This is a process. This isn't something that's going to happen overnight. Okay, so Megan, I'm going to hand this over to you, and I'm going to check my email.
Okay, thanks, Jamie. So while she's gonna check the email for questions that you guys were asking, and while she's doing that, I'm going to talk quickly about some resources that we have for you. So these are 2 of our publications, which you can find on our website, which we can give you the link to that. The one on the left is called Fire Adapted Communities, the Next Step in Wildfire Preparedness. And that is a really in-depth guide to defensible space, but also home hardening, creating good access to your community so that fire agencies can come in and out, and other elements of fire adapted communities. And on the publication on the right is a really cool guide to choosing the right plants in Northern Nevada for high fire hazard areas. And that will help you choose the right plants for your landscape to minimize maintenance, plants that are more sustainable in this environment. So it's a really great resource, not just for Nevadans. I know there's a lot of landscape that is high desert, so go ahead and check that out, and we can link to that later. Jamie, do you have those questions pulled up?
I do, yes.
Okay.
Okay, first question. Jenny asked, I have junipers about 9 to 12 feet from my house. I have read that they are fire bombs. Should I remove them? I have stone around house, no grass. We removed yucca. Jenny, it is recommended to remove junipers within 30 feet from your house because they are so flammable. I have heard of individuals who, if you have junipers that are more than 30 feet, I've heard of individuals who just pruned up their junipers so they're not as dense and got rid of all those dried leaves, dried branchlets. But yeah, we recommend having junipers removed from the house within 30 feet. So no junipers within 30 feet. Kevin asked a question for creating separation. How would you recommend mixing priorities? For example, space between tall trees with the function of something like a windbreak, where you want trees close enough to block the wind. So Kevin, I think Megan talked about this. So we actually recommend having deciduous trees a minimum of 10 feet from the house. Now, if you were talking about maybe having like pines, maybe you were talking about that. We recommend having a distance between those pines be 10 feet. I hope I'm answering that question.
Yeah, I think that I didn't explicitly say 10 feet, so I'm glad this has come up. But yeah, we do recommend that trees, planting trees, you want to keep them at least 10 feet away from your house. I think that it's just a matter of priorities. So creating a windbreak is important, but maybe you can kind of stagger trees to create that separation, but while also maintaining that space from the home, because I think that for us, the main priority is creating that defensible space and improving the likelihood of your home not igniting during a wildfire. So
thanks for bringing that in, Megan. I think another thing to mention is that if you are talking about pine trees or Jeffrey pine, white fir, we recommend that being further away from the home. I know that anyway, deciduous trees within 10 feet from the home. So
yeah. So if we didn't fully answer your question, go ahead and reach out to us at lwf@unr.edu, and maybe we can get into more specifics about that.
Yeah, thanks. Let's see. Where can I find the recordings for these sessions? So we are recording all of these sessions. Megan has been doing an amazing job making these accessible. And it takes some time and effort. It takes probably a couple of weeks to do these to make them accessible, meaning making subtitles on these videos. We do have a link to where I believe the first 2 sessions are recorded and up. And maybe Christine can share that link. If it isn't shared, I'm sure that you can always email us, lwf@unr.edu. Stephanie says, can we have a copy of the slides after the presentation? Yes, you can, definitely. Why don't you email us, lwf@unr.edu. I know for the last presentation, we ended up creating, well, it wasn't me, it was Megan. I'm giving Megan all the credit. Megan did it. She did an amazing job. She created this beautiful email, and it had links to the publications that the speaker was talking about and attachments, and it had a link to our videos. So if we can create that in time, we will. But just for the time being, just email us, lwf@unr.edu, and we can
do we want to, can we do a quick exercise if you don't mind, Jamie? Can anybody, you guys have the raise hand function. Can everyone raise their hand if they would like if we would like the materials emailed to them? And if we get enough, then, okay, there we go. So we'll just email them. We'll email them out to all the attendees then. Because in the past, we've been just doing it to people who email us. But thank you guys for participating and raising your hands.
I like that. Great idea, Megan. Okay, let me see if there's any other questions. It looks like there is. Round 2 questions. Jeannie has a question. We have coyote willow behind our fence 50 feet from the house. I heard coyote willow isn't very combustible. Can it stay? I'm actually not familiar with coyote willow, and that seems like it's pretty far away. I would say it can. I'll look into this, Jeannie, and I'll email you. Good question. Oh,
I can jump in there. I would say that willow would fall under the same category as like a maple tree or anything that's a deciduous plant. Willows don't have the same levels of oils and things in them as a juniper. So I think you're okay with the willows there, Jamie.
Thanks, Christina.
The voice from Christina Restaino, our fearless leader. She's the director of Living with Fire.
Jeannie has another question. When you say reach out to our local agency, are you talking about the Nevada Division of Forestry or our local fire departments? It would be your local fire departments first. For example, if you live in Reno, it would be reaching out to the Reno Fire Department. If you live in the jurisdiction of the Truckee Meadows Fire Rescue, you'd reach out to them. If you have questions about who's within your jurisdiction, just email me and we can help you. For sometime, just email me and we'll figure it out.
Yeah, we have a tool on our website for Nevadans to find out what their local fire agency is. So I'm just making a note here to include that in the email that we sent to you guys.
Okay, Marie has a question. Is sagebrush as flammable as junipers? We have a lot with about a 25% slope that I clear of cheatgrass and small plants every year, but I never remove the sagebrush. Should I? There are some homes nearby, but it is a developing neighborhood. Good question. So when you have a bunch of sagebrush, it's really important, like Megan was saying, to do twice the height between shrubs. So let's say that your sagebrush is 2 feet tall. You'd multiply it by 2 and ensure that there's a space of 4 feet in between those sagebrush. And again, I'm just going to emphasize it's really important not to remove all of it. Just as Megan was saying, you can have problems with soil erosion. You can have problems of infestation of invasive weeds. So it's really important just to do twice the height between separation for shrubs. First question, is sagebrush as flammable as junipers? No, it's not. But those are fuels and they do burn. So I would just do twice the height between shrubs. Stephanie says, if we are going to get fruit trees, should we keep them 10 feet from the house as well? Any specific thoughts? Yeah, I would do that. I have a fruit tree that's 10 feet from my house. If your branches are growing out towards your house, I would limb those down. But yeah, I would do it. I love fruit trees. I have a cherry tree. I love it. Let's see. Let's see if there is another group of questions to answer. I don't have any. Megan, do you have anything to add?
You're on mute, Megan.
You're on mute, Megan.
Thanks, guys. Sorry. I put it on mute because I was looking for our YouTube channel, and when you click on the channel, it instantly pops up the video, and I didn't want you guys to hear that. So, yeah, I don't have anything to add. I wanted to just kind of hammer in the point that Jamie said about if you're overwhelmed, just focus on that first 5 feet. Also, if a wildfire is happening in your community and you are, have some pre-warning, after you've packed your evacuation go bag and prepared your family for evacuation, if you do have some time, that's also the area of your home to focus on. Like if you have any lawn furniture or anything like that, any debris in your home, you want to make sure to spread that out. If your wood pile is around your home within that area, just spread the logs, just focus on that area if a wildfire is coming to your community. So that's all I have. Looks like we're getting a few comments. It says, Alice asked, when you say 10 feet apart, do you mean the trunks or all parts? So good question. We mean the widest part of the branches, right? Mm-hmm. And that's the same for trees and shrubs. And then pine needle composting. Heidi said, pine needle composting, aging in place, low funds. I'm not exactly sure I think that's just a comment. I think maybe she's talking about she doesn't necessarily have the capacity to do this work. So that's when I would say reach out to your neighbors, to people you know, friends and family, see if they can help you. And that's all I have. Does anybody else?
Yeah, it's really important. I'm really glad that you mentioned about removing the piled wood next to your house. So again, if you can put your wood piles, in your garage, in a shed, 30 feet away from your house, that's a great idea. So embers can get in there and ignite that wood pile for sure.
So while we have everybody still, you want to go ahead and launch those post presentation polls?
Yes. So I actually wanted to first show this. You can always visit our website, livingwithfire.com, and you can see learn more about Defensible Space. You can look at our publications. We just redid our site, so we're pretty excited about that. Megan, I can't share the polls. Can you share it, please?
Yeah, I'll share the polls. And then while I do that, Randy had a question, which might be for you or Christina. I'm not an expert. It says, is a pine tree not deciduous, and how far should they be from the structure?
Yeah, so I can answer that. Pine trees are evergreen trees, so they keep their needles year-round. A deciduous tree is something like a maple or an ash, aspen trees. Those lose their leaves in the winter. So any evergreen tree, we suggest is no closer than 30 feet from the home. And personally, I don't plant deciduous trees within 30 feet of my home either. I like to keep a pretty large spacing, knowing that the crowns of the trees are going to grow over time. But the recommendation is within the first 30 feet of your home, lean, clean, and green zone, deciduous trees are okay there. So things like maples, ash, aspen, etc. And then after the 30-foot mark, then pines are okay. I still don't personally encourage you to plant very many of them because they are quite flammable.
You still want to create that distance, right? Because, like between the canopies of the trees and stuff like that.
Exactly. You just really want to reduce the continuity of fuels, both horizontally and vertically, right? So you don't want the ladder fuels, as you said, and you also don't want to have the ability for a fire to run from the wildland area up to your home because you have a continuous line of trees or shrubs going directly from the wildland to your home.
Cool. Thanks, Christina. So it looks like we're starting to get some people answering the polls. If you haven't already, please go ahead and participate in that poll. That really helps us with our programming. Oh, I've been leaning over, you can't see, but this is, I'm wearing my Living with Fire vest. There we go.
Looking good.
Thanks. Thank you guys all for participating and coming. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you.
And I'll just echo one more time here, gals. Sorry, I have a toddler in the background here, folks. You'll have to excuse her. There's so many resources on the website, and Jamie has that up here now, but there are publications, evacuation checklists, step-by-step instructions of how to prepare around your home, ways to identify the different parts of your house and your property that you can prepare for wildfire. And so please look at the website, great resources, and then you can always email us if you need anything else. Thanks for coming.
Great. I also wanted to remind folks that Christina, whose voice you just heard, she's going to be doing a workshop next Tuesday, same time, 11:30 to 12:30, about home hardening and retrofitting your home for wildfire survival. So that'll be awesome. Yeah.
Be sure to sign up for that. And I want to say it looks like we don't have any more people voting.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. If you all have any questions, again, email us at lwf@unr.edu. And thank you very much for attending. Oh, somebody just voted, so I'm still keeping up that.
I just realized that I'm going to take a screenshot of this too. Oh, okay. So people are starting to leave. So I'm going to go ahead and before I end this, I'm just going to quickly take a screenshot. So don't mind me, everybody.
Thanks again, everybody, for attending. Really appreciate it. And thanks to Christine and Christina for all the support. Huge thanks to those ladies. Okay, it looks like we all voted.
Yay. Okay, I'm just, I don't want to close the webinar just yet because I want to make sure I capture these screenshots. So apologize for sticking on. We still got a few people with us. Watching me. Some screenshots.
Thanks, guys, for attending.
Yeah. Cool. Feels like it's taking much longer than the first one. Okay, last one. Okay, got it. So I'm going to go ahead and end the webinar now.
Thanks, guys.